Next, from Springfield, Democrat and Republican senators hold a press conference to discuss the spread of Legionnaires Disease at the Quincy Veterans Home and denounce what they see as Governor Rauner's ineffectiveness at fixing the issue. This runs about 30 minutes.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Senator Tom Cullerton. I represent the 23rd Senate District in Villa Park in DuPage County. Today we are here with members of the Veterans Affairs Committee and the minority spokesman of Public Health to talk about a couple of issues that have come up and bills we are moving forward with bipartisan support to sort of address the Legionnaires Disease that is going on in this state and has reared its head in other places besides causing the deaths of 13 veterans within our Quincy Veterans Home. We have, right now, we have two bills that focus specifically on the mismanagement and the incorrect handling of the Veterans Home issue down in Quincy. Senate Bill 272 is the State Facilities Water Management Plan and Legionella Testing Bill. That would require, going forward, what was missed in Quincy was the fact that they weren't testing for Legionnaires. They waited 6 days before responding to people, but it was missed. We took way too long to make sure our veterans and their providers actually knew what was going on. So Senate Bill 272 creates the State Facility Public Health Water Management Plan Act, and it requires every state-operated residence facility to create a water management plan and a Legionella culture sampling and management plan for their potable water systems. We were told last Veterans Affairs Committee, and my two members will tell you, that Legionella is creeping in more places throughout this state. The sad part is we in the legislature are the ones who have to address it, as opposed to the Public Health Department coming forward and asking for our help. As opposed to Public Health bringing up that they need to do more testing and they can be part of more testing. We in the legislature, on a bipartisan basis, have agreed that it's obviously up to us to handle the responsibility, since others will not. The second main bill that has to deal with Quincy Veterans Home is about the infected person's notification. As we saw in Quincy, the governor and his administration waited 6 days before notifying anyone about the outbreak. 6 days is unacceptable. In that 6 days, a member could have moved from the home and not been infected. So Senate Bill 3301 requires an Illinois Veterans Home to notify facility residents and their emergency contacts within 24 hours if two or more residents inside the home are diagnosed with an infectious disease within a 1 month time frame. So these are both bipartisan bills. So we are looking forward to getting both of those passed. They have both come out of committee so far. The final bill that we have that is actually going to deal with specifically just the Veterans Home in Quincy is Senate Bill 2308. We still, on a bipartisan level, and members of the House, are waiting for the governor and his team to give us a number that is needed to appropriate funds. The Illinois legislature cannot sign contracts. The Illinois legislature cannot go out and do RFPs. But the Illinois legislature is needed to actually appropriate the funds. We have had these bills sitting here since the beginning of January. We have a House sponsor, a Republican House, conservative House sponsor, and Representative McSweeney, who is willing to take the bill and move it forward once the governor and his team actually create a plan and move forward with the dollar amounts it'll cost. It is sad to say that we are still here in the middle of March, considering all of this first started happening back in 2015. I visited the home in December of last year and asked for a plan and that we would be willing to help. And yet we are now sitting in the middle of March. So I will leave that there. I would like to ask Senator McCann if he would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Chairman, we appreciate all the hard work that you've done on this issue. We wish that the work wasn't needed. We wish this issue weren't upon us, but it is. And so self-government, the opportunity to govern ourselves, carries all sorts of awesome opportunities, but it also comes with unbelievable obligation. And one of those largest obligations is to accept responsibility. So unfortunately, so far we don't really believe, I certainly don't believe that this administration has accepted full responsibility for what's going on. They seem to continually pat themselves on the back and give themselves accolades for a plan that isn't working. Just last week, Director of Public Health Shaw, said that they believed they had turned the tide, when in fact, in the previous 7 days or less, 4 new cases had been reported. That's certainly not a turning of the tide. So I am happy and proud to join with Senator Cullerton as a chief co-sponsor on this package of bills, because we got to get to the bottom of it, and we have to move forward with a real plan. We have to start saving lives instead of being the problem. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to stand here with my colleagues today.
So good afternoon, Senator Mike Hastings. I represent the southwest suburbs of Chicago. I'm a former military veteran myself. My concern is this, is that over the last 3 years, 13 people have died, and they've always had a plan, whether it was at year 1, year 2, year 3, but for some reason their plan just continues to fail. And I know Director Shaw has said he thinks he's turned the tide. Well, I hope so, because it's taken him 13 people to die for him to say, oh, we finally turned the tide, when they should have probably addressed this after the first person died. I think it's embarrassing. I think it's a failure from this administration. And the fact that they have to appoint a czar and Director Hoffman to come and take over, this is very troubling. What's more troubling to me is the families of the victims of this. I think it's, number one, it's just a shame that some of our veterans in a home where they should feel safe and secure have contracted Legionnaires Disease and have passed away. We've introduced a bill that will address the damages that families are able to recover in this instance. I think that today we had a meeting about that as well. There's about 3 or 4 bills that have been filed that all deal with the same issue in the Court of Claims. The goal is that families deserve, number one, families that have veterans at these homes deserve homes that are safe. The families that have lost loved ones, they deserve justice. And I'll just tell you right now, this governor and the administration, it was reckless, and they were negligent in what they've done. And the fact that they failed to act over 3 years is inexcusable. And that's why I'm proud to stand in a bipartisan nature here with Republicans and Democrats. I know some other people couldn't make it today, but something has to be done. And when the executive branch fails to act, I think that a lot of us here in the legislature don't have a problem doing the governor's job if he's incapable of doing it himself. Thank you very much.
And we'll bring up Senator Hayne as well.
Mr. Chairman and distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I serve on the committee, of course, and I also was appointed to the Water Study Commission. What the hell is some water commission, which there's a meeting tomorrow morning. We had a meeting last month, and during that meeting, we were told there were numerous options, and that the matter was being carefully studied. The city of Quincy was represented. And the Director of Veterans Affairs indicated that the city of Quincy should not be blamed for the water issue, since this disease emanates from the water, obviously. And the city of Quincy was anxious to emphasize that. And there were numerous proposals talked about during that meeting, including digging a well. Who knows what the cost is, and but during the entire discussion, it was evident that the problem was in the pipes, the aging pipes, and one reason why this facility has issues and people dying in other state facilities, such as the Alton Mental Health Center, for example, does not with aging pipes, is the population of the Quincy home. These are aged veterans. Many of them have health issues. They have impaired immune systems, And so therefore, the matter should be addressed as it was presented. Getting these people a safe environment with safe water through new pipes, whatever that cost is. We've been on a political treadmill with this for years. And now we have a governor running for election, desperate to win the primary, and I attribute that to the fact that we don't have a resolution to what seems to be the problem, which is in the pipes. And we have more Legionnaires' diseases. The governor, of course, God love him, went to the home and spent 7 days there. So what? Does he have a impaired immune system? Does he have emphysema? Does he have a cancer, which would cause a further impaired immune system? The answer is, of course, no. So what does it prove going to the home for 7 days? What it proves is that he's somehow empathetic. Empathy doesn't get it, ladies and gentlemen. It's a study and the implementation of executive orders. Get the pipes done, is my opinion. We have this meeting tomorrow, and I'm going to demand some kind of a resolution to the fact that the home needs reconstructed piping. We have these homes throughout the United States. We had a tragedy in California in the last few days, a terrible incident, and we have some problems with disease and lack of proper living conditions in the Missouri home. So these are examples of, my opinion, a national neglect, perhaps, a national amnesia as to what these men did 30, 40, 50 years ago. We shouldn't be doing this in Illinois. Illinois, the soldiers, Marines, the men and women who served in our wars from Illinois, from the War of 1812 all the way through, of course, the Civil War, World War I and II, Korea, Vietnam, the Gulf War, where this young captain served with distinction. We owe these people a great deal. And for us to be on this political treadmill, well, there's no resolution. There's no resolution. There are photo ops, but no resolution. And in fact, I've been asked whether I've been to the home. I haven't, to be honest with you. In fact, I was advised by my oncologist not to go because I have an impaired immune system. And the governor drank some water, he said. So what? It's time for him to get past the primary and get this job done for our veterans. The people of Illinois are tired of hearing about it, and I think it's a tremendous dereliction of duty to ignore it any longer with further commissions, further studies, photo ops, whatever it is. Let's just get it done. He's the executive. We are the legislative branch. If he needs the money, we'll get it. Do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all my colleagues up here. What you've seen is bipartisan support. This is not a Republican-Democrat issue. This is an issue to take care of our veterans. United States veterans who have fought for their country, who signed a contract that said they were willing to die to fight for the freedoms that we believe in this country. They didn't sign a contract that said they would die in a veterans home down in Quincy, Illinois. We'd be more than happy to take any questions from anyone.
Senator Cullerton, you are having a take charge attitude. What is it? What is it you want done? If it's not to study it, as the governor has indicated, what is the magic word, it?
So the studies have been done. I mean, the study was done in 2016 and was never used, never utilized. Nothing was implemented. If you heard in our last Veterans Affairs Committee, they actually stated, we did the study, we had the study come back, We had already done water pipes. We were willing to wait. In the time that they were willing to wait, more veterans got sick. So they had the study, they had new pipes, and they saw it still didn't work, and then nothing was brought to the General Assembly. Nobody was informed of where it was going, how it was going to be, and they ended up doing nothing again until more veterans got sick last October, November in 2017. Another veteran died. And now the next time they did anything was when we called a special hearing. When the legislature stood up and said, time to hold hearings on what's missing and why they aren't doing anything. Every time we have a hearing, if you notice, a new thing occurs from the administration. Right before, day before the first hearing, they decided they were now going to test in a one-day turnaround. Blessing Hospital and IDPH said they would now step up. That should have been done 3 years ago. What needs to happen now is we either need the new home, truthfully, what we need is the dollar amount to make sure that this can all occur. Because we can pass that bill as fast as possible. Yes, sir.
Thank you. We've seen the hearings, we hear the vitriol. I don't see any Bruce Rauner voters among the four of you. I mean, it's a private matter in the ballot booth, but I don't see any among the four of you. Why do you think more political hay hasn't been made out of this among the people trying to get somebody else in the governor's office, and the commercials right themselves?
That you'd have to ask other candidates. I do not, I'm not in charge of anybody else's political campaign.
Sam's going to vote for GDIs.
Yeah. No.
So I have to tell you, I am not sure. I know that I would say probably every candidate has touched on it. Every candidate has called it either incompetence, dereliction of duty, total lack of trust by the public for the governor and his administration. Everyone has talked about it. Why nobody's made it a focal point, I cannot tell.
I think the main thing, this is, campaign season for everybody, but, that shouldn't be the primary focus of this here. I think the people in the Veterans Home, the families of those that have suffered, and if people want to politicize or amplify this to a point where it's, it may do undue harm to families that really need some recourse. We're trying to come up with, we have a package of plans that make sense, that the governor shouldn't have a problem signing. I think the one thing that we look for, getting to the other gentleman's question, is we're just looking for some leadership. We're just looking for some consistency here. When they talk about the estimated value of repairing the home, $500 million we heard $100 million, $30 million, then we heard $8 million. We heard it was going to take maybe a few months, maybe a year. Now it's 3 to 4 years. I mean, these families have lost their loved ones. I mean, this is big for these families. Not to mention we have employees there as well that have contracted Legionella. So there's a morale issue at the facility in terms of, is it safe to work here? Am I going to contract some sort of disease? We had testimony from people at the home. So, I mean, leadership and consistency. I give two craps about politicizing this issue. It's about making the place safe for people who are willing to fight for our country. I think that's very important.
I don't believe that, Senator. I think it calls for a pound of flesh.
Do you know, Bill, he wants a pound of flesh from you.
A pound of flesh?
I mean, in terms of some anger from candidates, I don't think it's wrong to call him out, but the governor is currently in office. The state representative that's running against him is currently in office. I really, truly think that they should focus on how do I fix the problem rather than screwing one another.
Senator, let me go. We don't know what the numbers are, right, on to fix it. You just said it's all over the board. So number one, how much would the federal government pick up of the cost to repair? Does the facility have any insurance that could be applied to some of this? So, I mean, how much is the state on? We don't know if we have to start over with a brand new building or just change the plumbing, do we?
So you are correct. We don't know if we have to start with any of that. However, we have been given the assurance by both Senator Durbin and Senator Duckworth that they will move to push for federal funds. Right now, with federal funds being part of that project, all the estimates that we've seen have said we could get up to 65% reimbursement on it. So if you can get 65% reimbursement, it's just ridiculous. We don't have a number yet. Senator Hastings made it very clear. started at 500 million, then it went to 30, 40 million. Then we've heard it at 50 million. We've also heard 8 million based off of a 2016 report. The numbers are all over the place. This should not be this difficult to do, especially when lives hang in the balance and people consistently talk about how they care about it.
Rather than, let's say, having the governor be responsible, why isn't the Department of Veterans Affairs responsible?
They're both responsible.
I think the entire administration is responsible.
I mean, I don't think if the governor is really, it's in Illinois, but it seems like it's more being administered by a different
I mean,
agency
it's
of government.
definitely a chain of command issue, right? I mean, so we have it's a public health issue, it's a Veterans Affairs issue. The Director of Veterans Affairs, the Director of Public Health are both members of the governor's cabinet. So ultimately, the buck stops on the second floor, ultimately. I don't know that Governor Rauner has figured that out because he's too busy riding his Harley and holding gimmick opportunities over at the home. That being said, I think let's think about this for just a moment. We've talked about it being nonpartisan, and it should be, or bipartisan. It really should be nonpartisan. This really isn't even, it's not partisan, it's not even bipartisan. Doing the right thing is a nonpartisan issue. Let's just do the right thing. It comes back to leadership, it comes back to responsibility. We know that because of FOIA, and I believe it was the Public Health Department in Adams County finally released some emails, we know that we have family members who have gone on record saying if they would have only known in a timely manner, they would have made other decisions about where their loved ones would be residing. They would have made other decisions had they been told. We also have staff that they found out about it on the news. The legislature, we found out about it on the news. This is about responsibility. It's about taking charge, taking the bull by the horns, and getting something done. And you're right, whether it's redoing the pipes, whether it's a new facility, it's going on 3 years. This summer will be 3 years ago that this issue started. And I believe last week in Chicago we heard when they gave their testimony, they committed to getting a preliminary report by the end of March, but then when another member of the panel pressed them and said, could we get the final by the 1st of May, they said, no, we can't guarantee that. 3 years, 13 deaths, dozens of illnesses, hundreds of people directly affected in the entire state, indirectly at least affected, and we don't even have a plan after 3 years? Sir, if that's not the governor's responsibility at this point, I don't know what is.
Senator McCann, when you were in Chicago, I think you said somebody should resign. Was
Yeah.
that a peak of anger, or who do you think it should be, and is that the
Well,
same?
quite frankly, I have had issues with Director Shaw. I serve on the Public Health Committee, so we have cause to see the director and his staff in the Public Health Committee from time to time. I voted no for his, when he was up for confirmation before the Senate most recently. I have not had confidence in Dr. Shaw as a leader for quite some time. Unfortunately, he is like many of the people that Governor Rauner has surrounded himself with. They are more interested in politics and press pops than they are in leading. That being said, I have reserved my comments to Dr. Shaw, and I haven't said too much about Director Jeffries, but I have to say that Director Jeffries is not a star these days with me either. If she doesn't stand up and do what's right, I'm going to start calling for her to step down as well. Director Shaw should have been canned a long time ago. He should have been fired, given the opportunity to resign. If he's not going to resign, if he's not going to do his job as a public health director, the chief public health officer of the state, he needs to find another job. We don't need him.
And I'm at a loss to understand why the governor would not be responsible. The governor is the chief executive officer of the state, appoints all these officials. Part of the commentary, you refer to it as vitriol, is to try to shake him to the point where he acts, to bring people in to get it done. It's 3 years, the chairman said, and the senator, 3 years. Part of our effort is to get him to get it done. I know it's difficult running for office and chewing gum at the same time, but this man was elected the chief executive officer of Illinois. In the old days, it was called the chief magistrate. And it's up to him to get it done. And I'll give you one example. What's that phrase? Where your treasure is, that's where your heart is. Drive by the governor's mansion. and see how that's being done. When he came into office, that was a wreck. A wreck. Look at it now. It's being finished, rebuilt in 3 years. What's the difference between the governor's mansion and a home for veterans who risked their lives for the United States and for Illinois? What's the difference, Governor? There is none. The priority should be the Quincy Veterans Home, not the governor's mansion, for God's sake. Thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any updates on the Court of Claims bill? Or
Yeah,
your
we
bills?
actually met today, Senator Cullerton, myself, and Senator Connolly, and then Representative Riley, who's carrying a bill in the House of Representatives as well. So the Court of Claims, just through their efficiencies, they want some things done. And there's a couple different scenarios. So when these victims' families, they're going to sue the state of Illinois. They're capped at damages up to $100,000. That's for a tort claim. Now, the state, for auto claims, is not capped. So there's a couple different scenarios that we laid out today, and whether or not there's the $100,000 cap, whether it's a $2 million cap, whether it's a unlimited cap, and let the jury, let the judge decide what the adequate remedy and damages should be for these families. The other question is the time period. Should it be retroactive? Should it be from this point forward and those families don't get anything? Just want to give you a very distinct example of some of the inequities in the state. We lose, under the current law and under the current system, we lose 13 veterans. Their families are only entitled to $100,000. In 2007, there was a state trooper who was going 120 some odd miles per hour while he was texting somebody at the same time. He managed to kill 2 young ladies in Collinsville. Their family, between the two, the settlement was $8.3 million. So, and that was through the Court of Claims. There's a judge, there's a panel that meets, it has to be agreed on. So the question is whether or not, what is the value of one's life? Are 2 females, young females in a car, is that worth $8.3 million and a veteran's life only worth $100,000? And the other question is in terms of time period, how far do you go back? Do you limit it only to one situation, or do you limit it to a broad sense of situations? And my perspective is that I think we should really revisit that law and have a good conversation. I know Senator Cullerton and myself and everybody else here is really committed to making these families whole. These families are devastated, and it's a shame they lost their loved ones because of negligence and a reckless disregard for human life. That's just my personal view, and it's actually kind of embarrassing. It's very embarrassing for the governor just not to act.
I think the underlying point is here, we just want the governor to do his job, and we want to help him. We have a bipartisan group of legislators who are saying, tell us what you need so we can get it to you, so we can actually deliver state government. That's what it really boils down to.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? If not, I think we will, yes.
Some of the bills that you guys were discussing, I know one of them was in the Veterans Committee just earlier this afternoon, and there was some amendments.
So Veterans Affairs, sadly, and what is sort of, I guess is an epidemic with what's been going on so far, is that bill was filed about a month and a half ago, 5-6 weeks ago. And today I was told by Veterans Affairs there's a problem with it. Reactionary policies are not how things need to be done. Now I'm willing to work with them on the amendment, just like I'm willing to work with them to find the solution on this. But again, this goes down to a culture, waiting till the last second to try to figure things out instead of actually being proactive, coming forward, working with us. So I heard just barely what I heard in the committee is what I know is the objection, because it was never really brought to me. It was given to our staff this morning. Well, this morning I was coming in, had meetings with other senators, had to be on the Senate floor. So the fact is if the governor and his team want to actually accomplish things and be successful, they need to be proactive on it and not just react at the last second to everything coming in front of them.
Do you think that the amendments are going to improve the bill at all, or are they necessary?
I'm not sure if they're even necessary, but I did commit, as I said, I'm willing to work with anybody to solve and have the right solutions come forward. If it doesn't work, then I'll run the bill as is. If it does work, then we'll amend it. Yes, sir. And you'll be, I don't have somebody who has final question.
Sure.
Where are you from, sir? If you want to answer.
Chicago Tribune. Whatever happens, nothing's gonna be finished tomorrow. Nothing's gonna be fixed tomorrow. There's still gonna be a potential risk for Legionella, and Quincy. Any new thoughts on what should be done in the meantime for the veterans who are living there now?
well, obviously, they've changed a bunch of filters. They've done what they consider proactive steps. There's also, I do not know if they have investigated the possibility of a facility that's within 2 blocks away, that's a former nursing home. I don't know what their plan is. Senator Hayne may have the best opportunity to hear what the plan is, because apparently there's a second task force meeting tomorrow. But we have no clue what the governor's plan is on any of it.
And we're not even in high season for Legionella, right?
Right.
This is the winter time. We had 4 new cases within the last 10 days, and here we are coming into that high season, and with no plan. They definitely need to be moved to a safe location as soon as possible.
What's your name again?
Bill.
Bill. My question to you and my question to the governor is, when do you say enough's enough? That's just my question. So when the JW Marriott down in Chicago had Legionella in their fountain, they closed the whole hotel down. So when are we going to say, just stop? And how many more people have to die before you say, well, let's do another study, let's do a water plan? Quite honestly, I think it's a bunch of crap what he's done so far for the last 3 years. You can quote that too. I'm okay with that. I just think that it's embarrassing. When's enough? Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, everyone.